Sten, we're live.
And that's a big thank you to Larry, the Liberty guy, who we need to see more of on the show. I keep telling him he's got to start doing a young person's millennial show. So in your comments today, urge Larry, the Liberty guy, to get going, get his own show going here on In the Dugout or on our new channel, whatever. Anyway, and that, of course, was John Kiley from Fenway Park. Decades of yore playing Take Me Out to the Ball Game. Great memory as a youth. All right. Welcome to In the Dugout. I am your host, Mike Stenhouse. Listen, we've got a really important show today. If you're a parent, the government, the elites are trying to take over your rights. They want to become the parent. We've seen it happen in so many areas, and now this COVID has given them an excuse. So wait till you hear. We got representatives from two parent groups coming on today. First, we'll have a Health Choice Rhode Island, who will be talking about something we just learned about this morning, that without parental consent, students are going to be coerced into taking the vaccine. You'll hear more about that. And then from Rise Up Rhode Island, we've had them on the show before a few weeks ago. They're still making their push with spring sports having started, I believe, this week or last week. There's still mandatory testing with an experimental test if you want to participate in sports in most school districts throughout the state. I'm going to start talking about in a few minutes here about the census. There's some fishy data with that. A lot of people were surprised at the results, not only in Rhode Island, but in other states. And looks like there could be some fishy data behind that. I'm not saying anything untoward happened, but some inconsistent data, again, raises a lot of questions. And then I'll also be commenting on Joe Biden's first 100 days. And that'll be in the first segment before we get to our parent groups. Tomorrow, we have Chris Carlosi from the National Federation of Independent Businesses. He runs the Rhode Island and Massachusetts chapters. They're the largest. He represents the largest business group, and we're going to talk to him about these anti-business policies. With all the attention on COVID, very little attention has been given to these anti-business policies that Governor McKee's been either implementing or enacting or hinting he's going to support. So we're going to talk to Chris Carlosi about that, about the small business climate under Governor McKee. And then, of course, at 4:30, as always, on Thursdays, Dr. Andrew Boston. And boy, there's a lot to talk about with. I'm sure we'll talk about what you're going to hear today with these coerced and mandatory vaccines and testings. He's also found some data about high numbers of deaths in young people with this vaccine, especially as compared with traditional flu results, flu vaccines. And this is all CDC data. So tune in tomorrow, a big show. So again, we'll get to our parents groups in just a few minutes. All right. You know, when the story came out 2 days ago, was it 2 days ago that Rhode Island didn't lose a congressional seat, had maintained enough population. In fact, the data said even grew population a little bit. A lot of people were surprised. A lot of people were surprised that a lot of people thought Texas would get 3 or 4 seats and Florida would get 2 or 3 and that blue states would lose more. And this was all based on estimates that were put out by the census group, whoever they are. And don't forget now, it's under former Governor Gina Raimondo. In December, they put out estimates. And therefore, these projections of which states would gain or lose seats and gain or lose electoral college votes were based on those estimates. But what came out 2 days ago was very, very, very different than those estimates. And most people, again, you're not going to hear about this in the mainstream media. Actually, there was a big sigh, even though the results still favored red states, still favored Republicans, however you want to look at it. there was a big sigh of relief from the left because they were expecting, and there was a big sigh of relief from Rhode Island being one of those, because they were expecting much worse census results for blue states and much better census results for red states. So, and a lot of people contacted me when I made my comments yesterday about it. And we talked about how illegal immigrants, if Rhode Island did legitimately keep a seat, it was because of the undocumented immigrants in our state right now who count on the census. But you know what? Our government won't tell us how many. We don't know how many. You're not allowed to say who's undocumented when you filled out the census. President Trump tried to have that done. So, but beyond that, some new data came out today that I'm going to share with you that's really kind of stunning. And it raises questions again. There's no proof of rigging the numbers. But just like in the election, the data does not make sense. It raises their own questions, and maybe more will come out over time. But let me tell you what we know right now. So a lot of people were highly suspicious about the revised 2020 Census Bureau population data. Remember, they took a few extra months to release it too. This is supposed to come out maybe January, right after the new year. It took until late April to come out. Why? They blamed it on COVID, but all the numbers had been collected and forms had been collected before the end of the year. So again, that only raises more questions. So all right, so again, there were estimates in December of 2020, estimates from the Census Bureau. And then there was the actual numbers 4 months later in April. Between December and April, there were 2.5 million more blue state residents than were estimated. 2.5 million, and while there were 500,000, 500,000 fewer residents in red states as compared with the December estimate. How is it that the estimates could have been off by that much? And how is it that pretty much it was only blue states that magically found more residents and red states that magically lost residents from December to April? New York State, for example, you heard the headline, they lost one congressional seat according to the official numbers, but the estimate, and they say, well, there was only 89 people. If they had 89 more people, they would have retained all their seats. But you know how much their figures went up since December? 850,000, almost 1 million people since the December estimate to April. So here's a look at all the states and the differences between the December estimates and the actual 2020 April release. So let's go right to Rhode Island over here. So it was estimated that Rhode Island was going to hold steady at about 1,050,000. Instead, we ended up at 1,090,000. Somehow, magically, Rhode Island ended up with 40 more thousand people counted in the census than was estimated. Red state Arizona, it's still a red state in my view, lost 270,000. Florida lost 200,000. Texas lost 215,000 as compared to the April estimates. North Carolina, 161,000. Here's that New York number, almost 865,000 more people. That's a whole nother congressional seat. Because I think it's about 500, 600,000 per congressional seat, somewhere in that range. But if you look up and down the board, here's a whole bunch of blue states: Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, all gained big numbers of population. Red state Mississippi lost population. Montana about even. Nebraska gained a little. Nevada, that's kind of a blue state. That one lost, so that one goes against. But pretty much Oklahoma, red state, lost over here. So it's kind of amazing. And if anything fishy went on, former governor, Rhode Island governor, Gina Raimondo, is right smack in the middle of it because her Commerce Department controls the census. So I don't know. We'll see if there's any more evidence that comes out of anything fishy, but the numbers raise questions. We can say that for sure. We know that, listen, I know, can't prove it. In my heart, I know the left cheats all the time. When they control power, they cheat. That's my view. I don't know if you agree or disagree. They're trying to offer, and one of the excuses, or not excuses, one of the explanations for this discrepancy in numbers, and we know this happened in Rhode Island, as I mentioned yesterday, that Raimondo and all the blue state governors put together these commissions to make sure they counted every single illegal immigrant to try to keep the numbers high. Now, whether they did that legally or illegally, whether they fudged the numbers or not, who knows? Whether that led to why blue states ended up seeing more of these rises compared to the December estimates. Obviously, blue states are going to make more of an effort to appease and count undocumented illegals. So we'll see. All right, here's another one. Again, just to show you that not everything is like Rhode Island. Here is a tweet from Tennessee Governor Bill Lee. He's ending the emergency governance in his state. Yes, we're still dealing with a pandemic response, but no, there is no more emergency. And certainly we don't have emergency in Rhode Island. I was very disappointed in Dan McKee. The hospital numbers are way down. I mean, everything's way down. We're not overwhelming the system. There is no emergency. Yes, we have to continue to deal with a pandemic, but we're not in an emergency. We don't need to have single branch executive only tyranny without any General Assembly input on executive orders and how to deal with this. We need to return to balanced government, and ending this state of emergency is the step that gets us there. All right. Also tonight, I won't be tuned in. I can't, I'll fall asleep. But Joe Biden is giving his State of the Union address, an amended State of the Union address. We'll talk about that in a second. And it's symbolic because I guess just yesterday or today is his 100th day in office. And it's just sickening to see the media response to Joe Biden's first 100 days. Tonight and the first 100 days have been painted as such a rosy scenario. We're going to get to some of the real things they're not looking at. They say, I call it 100 days of, they're trying to say, listen, finally, America has returned to normal presidency since the raucous days of President Trump. All right. Now, I think we've had 100 days of abnormal tyranny at that. And let me explain why. Is it normal, as the media claims, that even with everybody vaccinated, that when they normally have an audience for a State of the Union of 1,400, but there's only going to be 250 masked people allowed in the chamber? Is that normal? That's not normalcy. Is it normal for a U.S. president to stand before the whole country and the vice president and proclaim that our country is systematically racist? Is that normal? Is it normal to promote anti-American critical race theory and 1619 Project lies and to incentivize school systems to teach that crap? Is that normal? Well, that's happening. Is it normal that a cabinet member would be accused of treason, as is John Kerry? I don't know the truth of it, but it's out there. It's a big story. Did he betray Israel in favor of Iran? Is that normal? Is it normal that a president would use false narratives and panic created from the pandemic, from climate change, from the systematic racism, those false narratives, in order to advance socialist programs that put government more firmly in control over more and more aspects of your life, as opposed to freedom, which our country was founded upon, a free American life, and to hide such socialist programs and COVID relief funds and infrastructure and pro-union bills. Is that normal? Is it normal that violent cartels and drug dealers have taken over our southern border? Is that normal? Is it normal that government now has an unholy and fascist type alliance with big corporations and big tech to shut down, to create pressure on, to eliminate this speech of people who speak out against this government or against the government's narrative? Is that normal? Is it normal that a U.S. president would shut down a major project like pipelines that would cost hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of jobs? Is it normal that a president would kill jobs on purpose? That's not normal. Is it normal that we turn a blind eye to lawlessness and rioting in the streets? Is that normal? Is it normal to have our Second Amendment rights assaulted through executive orders or as other programs this president is? And I forgot to put my cap on, so let me go. I'll explain my cap in a minute. Is it normal, as we mentioned earlier, to see our children indoctrinated with cultural Marxism? Is that normal for an American president to do, to promote that? Is it normal that our civil society and the very founding principle of this country are crumbling before our eyes? Is that normal? And the last thing, is it normal? You know who's given the rebuttal tonight to Tim Biden? Tim Scott, the black conservative senator from South Carolina. The Washington Post has already run a fact check hit piece on him, even though he hasn't said anything yet. Is that normal to defend a president to that extent? Let me read what the Wall Street Journal said about Biden's first 100 days. The striking fact of his first 3 months is that he has done the opposite of unify. He has sought to govern from the left, pressing the most progressive domestic agenda in decades with the narrowest Democratic majorities ever in Congress. He's governed like Bernie Sanders in a hurry, despite a 36-year Senate career with no notable causes or ideas. No less than Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says Mr. Biden has definitely exceeded her expectations and those of other progressives. Folks, the only thing that has returned to normal is that the media is not actively trying to get a sitting president out of office. In fact, they're doing the opposite. It's the media that has changed. But if you think that President Biden is a normal U.S. president, reread or re-listen to the list I just gave to you. This has all been media spin. All the raucous nature of Trump's was media spin. Yes, he's a combative guy. Yes, he was trying to undo the swamp and undo the status quo. Thank God he tried. But we know that the media, the way the media spun it, both Trump and Biden, very different. All right, let's get to our parent groups. We got two really important issues with two different but sort of intertwined groups. Do we have, Larry, do we have Ellen and Amy in the waiting room?
No, Sten, they're right here. You can't see
They're
them?
right here. All
They're
right.
right here.
Even better. Okay, I see. Hi, Ellen Schaefer, and hello, Amy Gardner. Welcome to In the Dugout.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey, thanks for joining us. Now, I got to ask, did you happen to bring a cap you might want to put on? All right. Ellen, what's your cap?
This cap is, although I don't know if I can wear it the whole time because I can't see.
That's okay.
But, this is a company called Yada Relax.
Okay.
Because I like
Whatever.
Auto relax.
I love relaxing.
Cocktail.
I'll be relaxing with a cocktail after this for
Yeah,
sure. All right,
yeah,
Amy,
yeah.
you got one for us, Amy?
No, I pulled over on the side of the road to make it.
Okay, all right. All right, so listen, you guys are the principals of a group called Health Choice Rhode Island. I'm going to share the screen. Before we get into it, want just very quickly, we got about 20 minutes to cover a bunch of topics, but very quickly, tell us what your organization is.
Well, Health Choice Rhode Island is a nonprofit organization, which is the original Health Choice is healthchoice.org, and we are healthchoiceri.org. And we fight for informed consent and your right to make medical choices for your family in proper manner that respects your choice. And that's an array of all different kinds of things that can fall under the health umbrella.
All right, so for anybody who would like to learn more or perhaps join your group, just go to Facebook and look up Health Choice Rhode Island. Ellen, anything you'd like to add to that?
No, I just would like to echo that Amy says, this falls under a huge umbrella. I'll just go right there. A lot of people do contact us about vaccination information, but that's not all we do. We cover a whole host of topics and try to advocate for people. We're just parents and family members ourselves. Everybody's volunteer basis. And we're just trying to advocate for existing rights that people have so they know what their existing rights are. And if those rights aren't respected, we want to help them get in contact with the people that they need to.
All right, so I want to quickly cover a Connecticut issue before we get to a Rhode Island issue, because I know you guys were involved in it, promoted it. And the reason I bring it up, because it's probably coming to Rhode Island very soon. But you guys promoted, and I don't know how involved you were, you can tell us, with a rally that was held yesterday in Connecticut, where they were considering legislation that would remove a religious exemption for medical procedures, vaccines, whatever else, if somebody so chose to use that option. Do I have that right?
Correct. They did have the rally. The vote occurred yesterday and it was passed. So it is at the stage of needing to be signed by Governor Ned Lamont in order to be passed into law.
So the legislature voted to repeal the religious exemption.
Correct.
Amy, what do you say about that?
Well, obviously that's not a good thing by any stretch of the imagination. And unfortunately, California already did that a couple of years ago. And there is a couple of states that have done this. And right now, Connecticut utilized in my opinion, they harped and utilized the COVID, not only the COVID fear, but the fact of COVID and not as many people being able to regularly participate in the legislative process. And although they did already start this process about a year and a half ago, if I remember correctly. So the legislators were working on this in Connecticut, and they definitely pushed hard. And unfortunately, even though there was thousands of people out there and they stayed well after the sun went down, they still voted against the will of the people that were surrounding the building. And my legal portion that I can't wrap my head around is, if we are a separation of church and state, how can we say what you have to put into your body in order to have an education, no matter if it's a vaccine or anything else? Like, I just can't comprehend how that crosses that line.
And in Rhode Island, we know there's been similar legislation. I think Senator.
Yes, in 2015, it was only 2 senators' names was on the bill.
Josh Miller and Gail Golden, right?
Correct. And it was never introduced in the House side. Also, it was one bill on the Senate side only.
Is
Thankfully,
it still alive this year?
No, it never came back. It was 2015
Right,
only.
so we're not in imminent danger of losing that in Rhode Island right now.
No, actually, on the House side, we have the exact opposite. There's a bill to add the philosophical exemption with a lot of co-signed legislators. So on the House side, we're in a better standing.
Okay. Also, you guys are supporting House Bill 5989, which would make it illegal or would prohibit individuals from being discriminated against if they didn't get a vaccine or some other medical procedure. I mean, it is American. We're supposed to have freedom of choice, right?
Correct.
Exactly. It makes it so that an employer cannot use your medical choice against you and cannot discriminate against you choosing not to do that.
All right, so I want to get to the issue at hand. Go ahead, Ellen, did you have something to add?
I was just going to say, it also adds vaccination to protected class status, which is really significant, has impacts on many other laws, as we know. So.
Okay. All right. So I wanted to bring those up to show how well-rounded your group is, that you're not just on this one issue and not just on vaccine. So the big issue that we just became aware of this morning is that public schools are now apparently going to be coercing their students 16 and up to get a vaccine with on-site clinics. It looks like often going to be run by the fire department, another government entity, without parental consent. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah, the Cranston notice went out for that particular district, and they state that the Rhode Island Department of Health is the one that says that they don't have to ask for permission at 16. And currently, I am not aware of any law. Ellen, you can harp in, but I know you were doing a lot of research trying to find out if there was something we didn't already know about. But as far as we know, there's nothing that actually gives them the authority to say that a 16-year-old can circumvent parental consent.
All right, we're gonna get into that in a second with a clause one of our attorneys quickly found for us. I don't know that it adequately covers it all, but anyway, I want to look at this letter first. It's on your screen. I don't know if you can see it. Sometimes it comes up a little fuzzy, but this push to vaccinate everybody. And everybody doesn't need that. We've had, you may have seen, we have a doctor on our show, Dr. Andrew Boston, who says, if you're this age, or if you're high school age, 16 to 18, you're at virtually no risk from the virus, of any serious health risk. And he's going to be showing tomorrow on our show,
Right.
data that shows that a surprising number of young adults are dying from the vaccine. So you go from no risk to some risk. The other thing that really bothered me, and you can see down here, and I don't know if you've seen this term, Amy or Ellen, before. Per the Rhode Island Department of Health, students age 6 are medically emancipated for these vaccinations. What is that? Have you seen that language before? And what language it is? I mean, it's almost like being a child under the purview of your parents is somehow akin to slavery or something. I mean, what's going on here?
Emancipated, it's very oddly used in that context, but it means that you are your own decision-making entity. And so a 16-year-old can go to court to emancipate from their parents so that they have all decisions that they make on their own, and they are then considered an adult at that point, making their own legal choices. I've never seen it used in this kind of context, but that's the intention of the word, is that they are their own entity separate from parental decision making.
Ellen, any thoughts? I mean, what else are students emancipated from their parents on medically? Do you know?
Well, in speaking with somebody at the Rhode Island Department of Health this morning, I found out that they're citing the statute, which allows age 16 and above to consent to medical care.
Here it is. Here it is.
Yes, that's it. Lists medical, emergency, surgical care, that they're allowed to consent to that. So in my view, what's being conflated is this emergency use authorization drug with emergency care. And any categorization of this COVID vaccine it's not routine. It can't be routine because it's brand new. So we can't call this routine. And you can't call it routine and in the same breath call it an emergency. So it's either a routine or it's emergency. And an emergency in my reading and understanding of the statute is like a triage situation in a hospital, or a severe injury or medical incident occurs.
Okay, not this fake state of emergency declared by the governor.
Or not an emergency use authorization drug. It's
right.
It's inflating these issues, with this sense of urgency, as if these kids need this immediately.
So you would argue that even this wording doesn't give them the legal authority, or your group would argue.
I don't know that I would argue that it doesn't give the legal authority, but I think what really where the problem comes in, like with this letter from Cranston, is the coercion. So if you look at the closing paragraph, it says it's important that we get as many of our students fully vaccinated as soon as possible as we prepare for our spring end of year events, such as the junior and senior proms and graduation related events. So whereas
vaccine passports, anyone? Yep.
Right. So the letter starts out saying it's not mandatory, but then you can see that there's going to be coercion involved. So it's the coercion of a child of that age, whether it's legally in statute or not, there's some sort of leverage being used.
And coercion circumvents consent and is considered not giving full informed consent. Because
all right, so that's another key point, Amy. You're all about informed consent.
Correct. Yes,
that's what your group is all about, right? Let people make informed. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Say it again.
I was going to say that's the bottom line foundation. If you want something after you have been fully informed of the facts, like all the power to you, definitely go get something that you want. But when you're not being informed or you're being coerced to make a decision under circumstances that you normally wouldn't, that's not acceptable.
Now let me, okay, go ahead, Ellen.
Sorry, I just wanted to point out one more thing about the letter, because we've been trying to gather some information on different schools, because this seems to be being rolled out among other schools in the state. But with Cranston specifically, this is being held during school hours. So where there's some other clinics being rolled out after hours at school, or we have information that one school already has like a refrigerated truck on standby outside of the school. That's one thing, but this is inside the actual physical building of the school during school hours. So the kids really are a captured audience at that point.
Yeah, and coercion is the exact opposite of informed consent. All right, two other points on this. First of all, going back to this law, you can see that they give exceptions for abortion or sterilization in the law.
Right.
And as you, I think, Amy, indicated, there should also be an extension for any, experimental emergency use authorization. That means it hasn't been fully vetted and fully approved for the FDA. It means, hey, we're still looking at it. We're still testing it. We're still checking out long-term side effects or implications. That's what emergency use is. To think that we would mandate emergency use or coerce, I'm wondering if something adverse were to happen, if school districts themselves might be legally liable for any adverse outcome here. Any thoughts on that?
Well, legally, they cannot, neither the school nor any government entity can require the vaccine currently, because it's not a fully authorized vaccination. So there is, and of course, I don't know it off the top of my head, maybe Ellen has it handy, but there is a federal regulation that does not allow for government basically force of an experiment. And so you have to voluntarily participate, because it is considered an experiment right now. And it was only authorized because of the emergency use authorization.
All right.
So they cannot actually mandate it, or no government entity can of any kind, which includes public schools. However, the coercion to attend the event haven't quite vetted, and maybe your on-site lawyer can better vet.
Yeah,
as
we
to
know
whether
there's going to be enormous pressure on these kids from their peers, from other parents, from teachers, from administrators to take this, again, without their parents' consent or even necessarily without their knowledge right now. So I want to focus one more area. I mean, this letter from the Cranston Public Schools thanks Mayor Hopkins and the fire department. So apparently this was done with Mayor Hopkins' blessing, which is surprising to me. I know the mayor. It is surprising to me. But let's not focus on the legality of this. Just because it's legal
doesn't make it
doesn't
okay.
make it right. Right? When you're a 16-year-old in high school living in your parents' home, shouldn't they have some say over these important medical decisions? And if you want a vaccine, why not just sign up for a vaccine like everybody else does? Why is this being coerced and forced upon people at schools? So this is really about parental rights. Let's not get, I mean, it may or may not be legal, but even if it's legal, it's violating parental rights, right?
I think it's violating parental rights, and I think it's violating the informed consent principle. Like Amy was explaining, it's very important to remove the element of coercion from the offering of this experiment. There are already clinics set up at senior centers and offsite locations in convenient hours where if parents and children decide together that it's the right thing for their family, they can go. To do this on site in school, it's disrupting education to forward this agenda, and it doesn't belong to be infused into the school in this manner.
And I'm read somewhere else, I don't know if it's in this letter, that nurses are supposed to be giving the school nurses, whoever whether it's I don't know if firemen are able to give this, or I guess somebody with a what do you call it?
An EMT
An
license.
EMT, I guess, would be authorized, but I guess the person giving the vaccine, administering the shot, is supposed to give some sort of data and information on that. I mean, I doubt they're going to mention that young people are dying from these vaccines. I doubt they're going to mention that people who have, especially anybody who's had the virus and recovered from it, probably shouldn't get the vaccine in addition to that, at least not for another 6 months or so. I'm really curious to know what kind of information they're going to give to these students before they poke them in the arm.
I would like to know that too. And the main piece of information is that it's not approved by the FDA as proven to prevent or transmit this virus. That is the required information for health providers administering this vaccine from the manufacturer. The manufacturer's instructions say it is required to inform the person getting the vaccine that this is not approved by the FDA. It is for emergency use only. And
right. Well, we're going to talk about this more with our next parents group who are talking about a different forced testing program, not a vaccine program, but Amy Gardner, Ellen Schaefer. The group is on Facebook. It's Health Choice Rhode Island. If you want to join,
we have
this is outrageous the way that
.org.
What's
Saying
that?
healthchoiceri.org.
healthchoiceri.org or on Facebook at Health Choice Rhode Island. Okay, that's terrific. And thank you for standing up for parental rights. I mean, this unchecked government power during this COVID crisis is out of control right now. I know parents across the state are outraged. And if you're watching right now, Governor McKee said today that Johnston, North Kingston, Cranston are already on board. We heard from someone else that South Kingston's on board. You know, this is going to catch like wildfire. So folks, don't think it's isolated to these other cities. This is coming to a school near you very, very soon. We'll let you know if we have some organized opposition to this Cranston's program starting Monday, May 3rd.
Yes.
Ellen and Amy, thank you for your courageous stance on this.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. God bless.
Thanks. Have a good day.
All right, let's bring on our parents now who have been patiently waiting in the waiting room from Rise Up RI. And we welcome to the show once again, Karen Ferris, Rick
Hi, Mike.
Provost. Rick, turn on, there you are. Rick's back in his car. It's where he was last time. He was always in his car, Rick. And Jean Lahane, welcome to In the
Hi.
Dugout.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yes.
All right, any going to join me in some fun and wear a cap today? Anybody? Yeah, what do you got?
I got
Hi.
National Guard.
What do you got there, Jean? I mean, Karen?
That's me, National Guard.
All right,
I'm
National
supporting
Guard. All
our
right.
men in uniform.
All
And
right.
I have the Gulls. I like the Newport team. The local.
Oh, the Newport Gulls baseball team. Yeah, I
like
love that.
team. I like local baseball, but the national baseball, forget it.
Okay, yeah, I know.
For
I've been
now.
sort of boycotting Major League Baseball myself after their
Yeah.
decision. All right, so before we get to your issue, I mean, I know you guys sort of overlap with this. What do you think of this governor endorsed project to coerce high school students to get the COVID vaccine in clinics right on site? What you guys are parents, right? You're all parents, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's outrageous myself.
Go ahead, anybody, go ahead.
Yeah.
It totally scares me because like they're going to give this vaccination and we're not going to know if our child's going to have a reaction and we're not going to be there.
Yeah.
What's going to be the case then if our kid collapses because of a medical issue and we're not there?
The bottom line is the vaccine is still under emergency authorization usage. So it's just not, I don't even think it's legal to do this. So it just doesn't make sense. You know, we're very concerned about it. Absolutely.
All right, Rick, I see Rick, you've got a cap. I can't read it from here. What do you got for us?
Mike, this says Maine vacation land. It's a license plate. It says River Rock. River Rock is a Christian music festival. I'm a festival director for. So,
Oh, cool.
Oh, cool.
Maine. So, if you've ever heard of Michael W. Smith or Carrie Job, two major Christian artists, they'll be there along with 6,000 people.
All right, we'll look forward to hearing
awesome.
more about that. All right, so you're a parent too. You know, we're talking about this coerced vaccination. Do you have any faith that these administrators, whether they're nurses, school nurses, or EMTs at a fire department, are going to be properly informing the students of the risks before they administer these vaccines?
No, from my understanding, the only indication I have of anyone giving informed consent on the dangers of, say, testing or the dangers of vaccination is in the experience with testing of high school athletes. They've given no informed consent to the athlete who's being tested, and they're in a sense turning these schools into medical clinics. So no, I have zero faith that in these school, whatever you call them, nurses or school representatives or EMTs are going to be informing them of any dangers, handing them any information to evaluate. And not only that, since when is the government raising our children and not us?
Well, that's the whole point. The government is trying to be your parent, trying to be the parent. They want to make, they don't want any, they want their narrative, their programs to be automatically accepted. Damn be any religious objection, as we saw in Connecticut,
Right.
eliminate religious exemptions. Damn be any parental rights. You know, right now they're just reaching down to 16-year-olds who, you know, where are they going to go next? Right. Right. And now they want to teach critical race theory. We know that coming from the Biden. I mean, it's never ending where the government is trampling all over you guys as parents, right?
Exactly. And if they've started with the testing, they've taken that over, and they're with the vaccination clinics within the schools. Are abortions next in the schools?
Wow.
Right.
Good point. Wow.
Well, we already know that a student can ask to have transgender chemicals and surgeries without even informing parents.
Yeah,
That's already law in this state.
That's right. What you're saying is that school nurses can authorize a prescription for hormone therapy to a male or female student. So where does it stop?
That's right.
No.
So this is
Good point.
this is all about this is not about fear over a vaccine, you know, this is about families, right? This is about parents and their children and their students having a proper relationship where these things are decided by the family, not by the government. And we'll get into your issue in a second, but I want to keep it at this really high level right now. Karen or Jean, what comments do you have about this intrusion of government into your kids' lives?
First of all, I wanted to say just the division that it's causing between parents and children. We have some families that are dead set against doing the vaccinations, where their kids that go to school, you know, are friends with a lot of people that are getting vaccinated, are saying, oh, it's okay because, you know, this one's getting it, or this one has a parent that's a doctor, and they're saying it's okay.
Like peer pressure.
Peer pressure is terrible.
It is.
Yeah, and you might be aware of more medical data than they are, and you will decide differently, and it's going to cause this division. Rather than deciding as a family, the government's stepping in and driving this wedge potentially
just
between parents and their kids.
Individual choice. That's what we're promoting, you know.
Freedom of choice. Absolutely. All right. So let's get to your group's specific issue that we originally. So here's just another example. So this is from Charahoe. This is a notice we got. You guys have seen similar notices in your cities and towns, but you know, we know the Interscholastic League here at 6th through 8th grade. If you want to participate in baseball, softball, or outdoor track, beginning Monday, parents have to complete the consent form and again, allow for this emergency use authorization testing procedure that's not FDA fully approved and that poses risks, but again, more importantly, invades parental rights and mandates such testing if you want to participate in sports. So this was the original issue that your group formed over. Tell us where we are. I know there's been petitions, but who wants to give us a summary of where you guys are?
I can do that, Mike. So the update basically is that no one in a position to do anything is doing something, but we did have the petition that has over 500 signatures. We have 3,500 emails that have been sent to the RIAL, the Rhode Island Department of Health, the DEM, RIDE, the superintendents, but we have received less than a handful of responses from all of them. And but we do have confirmed that this is not a mandate from RIAL. It's not a mandate from the Rhode Island Department of Health or RIDE, and it's as required for participation in sports. So,
all right. So hold on one second. I just want to make sure we promote. So if you're watching and you have email lists, you can send this to we've partnered with Rise Up in this petition. RIFreedom.org/Rise Up. And there you can read some information that the parents from Rise Up put together, a nice graphic here they put together, and you can sign the petition because this is probably happening in your school district. You may not even know about it, but we want to end mandatory testing for school sports. Hey, if people want to take a test, that's fine.
right.
But don't make it mandatory. Again, it's about freedom of choice. So RIFreedom.org/Rise Up. Okay, so again, just to recoup, Karen, this testing procedure, this mandate is being decided by the districts and their vast supply of epidemiologist experts, right?
That's the thing. It's like, who is a health expert in our school district that can say, all right, this is medically necessary to test these asymptomatic children to play sports?
Right.
You know, there isn't any.
It's also not consistent across districts either. We have some districts that are testing once per week, and we have districts like LaSalle that aren't testing at all. So it's just really, you know, there's no consistency to it. You know,
and Rick, there's no mandate from the Department of Health, from the Department of Education, or from the Interscholastic League on this, right?
That's right. And it was made clear to us this week that the testing was purely a suggestion, okay, and that informed consent would be obtained. And the reality is, in the districts, it's not a suggestion, it's mandated, and they aren't obtaining any informed consent. So the local school districts and schools in the districts that are mandating the testing are skirting their responsibility on acquiring the informed consent, and they're essentially deceiving us because there's no mandate anywhere. And since when can a school, without any type of how do I say this? It's become a district decision, so it's being forced on families without any school committee vote or formal policy adoption. So
the school boards aren't the elected representatives aren't voting on this. Unelected bureaucrats are deciding this.
and that's
Mike,
correct.
Mike, there's still zero procedural safeguards too in place, like the right to refuse or how to appeal it. There's nothing like that. And, we're looking at ride data that indicates that the children are not at risk. They're not in the classroom, not in the buses, not on sports. So it's just
Especially outdoor sports.
Exactly. And we just heard yesterday, I actually heard from my track coach that they were going to have some type of guidance as to whether they were going to be masked up. I know that's a little bit of a different situation, but I don't know if you heard about the situation in Oregon where the young girl was doing 800 and she collapsed on the finish line. Okay.
Because she had to wear a mask. Yeah.
Right. She was suffocating and she collapsed on the finish line. I mean, what is it going to take? Is it going to take someone dying, a lawsuit? What is it going to take, to get these people to realize that this is unethical, immoral? This is just not right for kids. It's terrible.
All right. So first of all, let's not lose sight. We can talk about all the medical reasons, but of primary concern, does anyone disagree? This should be a parental family decision.
100%. Yes.
100%.
Yes. You should be able to have the right to opt out of this, and they should still be able to play sports.
And by mandating these tests, the school district is once again, as we saw with these coerced vaccinations, infringing on your rights as parents, because you have no choice, right? Either you tell your kid they can't play sports, in which case you're the bad guy.
Yes.
Yep.
Or they do something that you're not comfortable with. And that's a lose-lose situation.
Yeah,
for your
again,
parents, right?
that's what's causing the division with families.
Right.
It's like we're, pulled on, we don't want this testing done, but here's our kids that have been playing these sports since,
Right.
elementary school, and now they're seniors. And what are we going to do? Again, we're going to be made out to be the bad guys.
And they've been keeping them from sports for a year. I mean, they're dying to play sports. You know what I'm saying? So it's just no way,
So with that as the number one thing, the parental rights issue, then there's the issue of forcing these, I'm going to use the word experimental, and Louise chastised me appropriately here on the YouTube chat. Even the vaccine is not technically a vaccine, according to the real definition.
Gene therapy.
Right. But whether it's the so-called vaccine or it's this COVID test, they're either coercing or forcing young people to take these, again, experimental, unauthorized procedures. I mean, it's insane.
Yes. With the gene therapy, you are the experiment. You are now in a clinical trial. It's just unbelievable, that they're going to make our kids basically be in a clinical trial with a vax that has not been approved by the FDA. It's crazy.
All right, let's take it down even another level. Again, parental rights, number one, this forced emergency use procedure, number two. Do you have medical concerns about the test itself, about the health and safety of your children with regard to this Binax Now test?
Well, what we found out about that test, we're not sure because we haven't been able to take it into a lab and test it, but it's that the preservative on the swab that keeps it sterile, they have a little thing that says EO on there, and supposedly that means ethylene oxide. And ethylene oxide is one of the biggest carcinogens you can have. And for having them put that up your child's nose, it's the fastest way to get to the brain. So who knows what's going to happen to our kids as far as any kind of cancers, if it's carcinogenic. I mean, these are things that parents are not thinking about. you know? And so, you know, we don't know. To be fair, we don't know because we haven't been able to test it. We are just reading what it says on the insert. So, and we've had people say that that's what it is, but we would love to get a couple tests to just run it
Right,
through.
so
a
there are
lab.
some concerns. We don't know the truth, but you're right. As parents, this is your job as parents.
Mhm.
But it
That's-
doesn't seem like the school districts are concerned at all, right?
No, also, my daughter had to get tested during school break in order to play sports this week. Well, she got tested, and just that day or the next day, well, I'm not too sure about the time, but her eye on the same side that she was tested turned bright red, like bright red. And you know, she's like, oh, you know, maybe I hit it or, you know, something. But I'm like, Kendall, it was right after your test. And of course, you know, they want to kind of
Right.
play it off.
Yeah.
All right, 2 questions for you, Rick. First, and I'll ask them both and you can answer them both together. They're sort of different, but just like you have no doubt that you're not going to get informed, your kids are not going to get informed consent, or either you as parents on this
Sure.
test. Is there any question in your mind that we're not going to start seeing this, as we've hinted earlier, with graduations and proms and maybe even attending school for next year? Is there any doubt in your mind that we're going to see this tyranny extended into those kinds of events? And what concerns do you then have, regardless of all these testing and supposed vaccination, or let's call them shots you're getting, because you're right, it's not technically a vaccine, Louise. For all this testing and all these shots, it's all being recorded somewhere. Do you have concerns about the privacy of your students' health data?
There's always concerns about privacy and what that might lead to. And I think it's important to point out too, that what one of the ladies mentioned a moment ago is that the kids aren't at risk, not in the classroom, not on buses, not in sports, yet they're still testing them. And we all know that, you know, 99.9% of them will recover fully. So what's the point of this data? Where's the data going? Why has Rhode Island been chosen as one of these, I don't know how many test sites throughout the country when many other states aren't? Why is it being mandated here? In other states it's not. But my concern overall, Mike, on a more global perspective, even locally, is that it's going to create a caste system. It's going to create a system of those who have abided by the testing, the vaccinating, being part of the gene therapy, being in the experiment as a guinea pig, as part of this non FDA approved therapy, being involved in this, and those that choose not to. What does it look like for our children who choose not to? What does it look like for us who choose not to? It's a two-tier system.
Yeah. So in addition to what the ladies were saying earlier about this being divisive between parents and children, it's also going to be divisive among the school community. Those who succumb and capitulate to government tyranny, and those who stand on principle and for parental rights, right?
That's right.
We know how fanatic people are. I mean, just look what happens when people don't wear a mask in a store or something. Imagine, just think how divisive these government tyranny policies are, right? That's what you're saying.
Well, here's the interesting thing, Mike, to us on this call, and many in our group, if not all in our group, it's government tyranny. But to many, it's people buying into the propaganda of this massive propaganda plan. Mass media, mainstream media, Hollywood, Facebook, wherever you turn, radio, newspaper, it's a continual barrage of this is the thing to do. So all of a sudden, passed down to the children in adolescence, it's become cool. You're in the in crowd if you get vaxxed, because the Hollywood celebrities are, all the politicians are, many of the athletes are. It's a thing to do. So for some, it's government tyranny like us. Others, it's a thing to do. And that's where it gets dangerous, because those people aren't seeing it as tyranny. They're seeing it as, wow, they're doing the right thing. So that's another factor that contributes to this two-tier system that we'll start to see in our society.
You know, there have been some victories against similar policies in Michigan, not across the board bans, but parents are winning some victories. And we will be looking for some legal assistance here. In one of the lawyers I spoke to from Michigan, they had success, and in Michigan, they have a similar testing mandate. but it's from the state down. I don't know if it's the Department of Health or the Department of Education, but somebody at a statewide level is manning this across the state, and they were still able to defeat it. I think if we can get some action here, some legal representation, the fact that these really these school districts who don't have the capacity to make these kinds of decisions and evaluations medically, at least, or just doing it to be politically correct, or to be woke, we probably have a really good case. Now, I don't know if this is going to continue in the fall. I don't know if we're going to have time to change it for this spring, but these tests they have to take them, what, every week, every day? How often do the
Every
kids have to
week.
take the test right now?
If you're in a school that tests, it's every week, Mike, but there's.
If you're an
like I said,
athlete,
there's at least, we think, about a dozen schools that aren't testing at all.
and who administers the test? The coaches, the nurse? Who?
In my daughter, at Portsmouth, it's self-administered. So they do it themselves.
And who actually gives them the test? The coach?
The nurse, the school nurse gives them the test, and they administer it themselves. And I know at the college level, they're doing
So
it
every week they have to test to be able to be authorized to continue practicing and playing that week.
Yep, they're doing the swab at the school level, but at the college, they're doing a lot of saliva tests now. So where's all the DNA going for this? Like, it's just, you know.
Well, that's the point with your privacy that we talked about earlier. Now, I saw a note here from Ellen, who said, Ellen S., who said that a California ruling said that the contract had to be changed to destroy the test results. Now, I don't know. Again, I don't know how much precedent that is and all that, but that's at least a good sign. Wow. All right. So what is your message to parents? Any parents watching who weren't aware of these coerced shots, COVID shots, who weren't aware of these? And thanks, Louise. I'm going to stop calling them vaccines. So I'm going to call them shots. We'll use Governor McKee, shots in the arm, coerced shots in the arms, and these mandated tests. What's your message to parents out there? Each of you take a shot at it, and then we'll close up.
First, I would say, parents need to take action. They really need to start stepping up for these kids and realizing what's really happening here. We really encourage everyone to join our group at Rise Up Rhode Island to get involved and
Sign our petition.
sign petition.
Yeah, so let me give those addresses again, rifreedom.org/rise up for the petition, and on Facebook, just search for Rise Up.
Rhode Island.
Okay,
So,
let me show you something that'll be encouraging. I just saw on Twitter right before the show. Take a look at this. You talk about action, parents. Apparently in Arizona, parents were so upset about, I don't know what COVID restrictions, they literally in one night took over the school board.
That's fantastic.
So folks, you can do it.
Yes.
We can
Yes.
do this.
And Mike, we're not going away as a group.
No.
We're growing daily, day by day. We continue to grow in numbers. So eventually we will be heard. Although we've been ignored pretty much, less than 3 responses with 3,500 emails. Every day we're getting bigger. We're rising, and we're really encouraging people to come out and join us, because we will be heard. And the more that gather together, the greater likelihood of us getting our message across. We're not letting up. We're standing in the trenches with our children, standing up for health freedom.
And we will be there by your side to help, because we
Thank you.
believe in parental rights and individual rights. Gene, the final word to you. And
Yeah,
you
I
guys
just
are
think
not
just-
just gearing up for this fight.
this
You
is-
recognize that there are other big fights coming down the road in months and years ahead, right?
when you think about it, what is more important than our children? And this is a fight for them because they do not have a voice. We are their voice, okay? They can't vote and things like that. They can't get rid of the legislators or your people on the council, but we can. And we need to be loud, and we need to be strong, and we need to do it now, because it's not going to end unless we do.
All right.
That's
You've
my
heard this. These are parents, folks. These aren't paid actors, right? We're not paying you anything here.
Nope.
No.
These are real parents with real concerns about tyranny, government control, their parental rights being infringed upon, about their real kids in real schools. This is real, folks. Other states, we just showed you in Arizona, parents are taking action and they're taking control. In this state, they try to tamp us down. But boy, if I look at the resolve of you three and I look at the 2 parents we had on earlier, I think government's in for a little battle here. Rick Provost,
You bet.
Jean Lehane, Karen Ferris, thank you so much for
Thank you.
joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us, Mike.
Thank you.
Wow, folks. You see what's happening here? You see how government is trying to manage everything and tell you it's in your own best interest and in society's best interest because we know better for your kids than you do. These kids are getting shots, they're getting tests, and there is no informed consent. Informed consent is the cornerstone building block of medical procedures. The patients must be fully informed of potential benefits and potential risks. None of us have confidence that's happening in either one of these two cases with these tests or with these shots. Not to mention the fact that parental rights, I mean, they're laughing at parents. They're laughing at parents. We know better. We'll take control. You don't have a say. And it's not just the COVID issues. I mean, this is happening with our green energy, with our energy choices. We're going to be told which choices we can make and how much we have to pay for them and which choices we can't make. We're going to be told how much of our money we can keep and how much we're going to have to pay in taxes to fund all this. We're being told how much we have to pay our employees and under what circumstances we have to pay them not to work. It's amazing how much we pay people not to work by law. The government's trying to tell us how to live our life. And this is just another example of the much larger issue. But these parents, but I'll tell you what, in 10 years of doing this, business people are wimps in this state. There's no one willing to speak out. And they got, I don't know why. Business people in this state are complete wimps. These parents are tough. These parents, like Rick Provo said, are not going away. These parents are going to make noise. They're going to grow in numbers. We're going to help them. And we're going to push back on this socialist government tyranny that's so overtly, I mean, can there be any question that the word tyranny is not is the appropriate term for this? Can there be any question? I'm looking forward to working with these parents. I'm looking forward to working with you. Look for them on Facebook. I forget their website names, but Health Choice Rhode Island on Facebook for the first group, Rise Up RI for the second group of parents. Get involved. Take control of your kid's future. Let's just stick with education right now. Take control of your kid's educational future. We know critical race theory is coming. We know all kinds of trans and other issues, mandates are going to be coming. What other, what else is going to be happening with proms and graduation ceremonies and even school next fall with masking and who knows what else. This is a big fight, and I'm so pleased these parents are standing firm, and I look forward to working with you and them. We will see you tomorrow. Maybe a follow-up on this. Chris Carlosi from NFIB, Dr. Andrew Boston, and again, he's going to talk directly to these issues tomorrow about how shots in the arms might pose more risk for young people than doing nothing, than the virus itself. So thanks for joining in today. Great discussion. Thanks to the parents. We'll see you tomorrow and in the dugout.